What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Marathon Training 2 series. This is episode 3. And this week, I have a very interesting idea to cover when it comes to this week's training, mainly because the training didn't actually happen this week. So let me explain why and kind of talk about what it means in terms of your training plan. So before I tell you what happened to me, let's go ahead and go over what this week was supposed to be in terms of the run I was supposed to do. As you can see here, we would start it off on Tuesday with a 5-mile interval run with 5 sections of 4 minutes with a 3-minute jog recovery in between, followed up by Thursday, a nice 6-mile easy run, Saturday, a 3-mile easy run, and then Sunday, what would have been the longest run we've done to date, or at least this year, with a 13 miles at a steady 11 minutes per mile. So those were the runs I was supposed to do, but now let's get into what actually happened to me this week. So earlier this week, I actually injured my finger. And what I mean by that is on Monday, while I was making dinner, I actually sliced part of my thumb off and actually had to go to urgent care to get it looked at. And so what that means is, so this is my thumb that I injured. This left side, my left side of my thumb, I was using a mandolin to slice up zucchini, and my thumb got a little too close, and now my thumb has a straight edge on it. And so what this meant was Monday was a rest day, so I wasn't running on Monday anyway. But what that meant was after talking with the doctor on Monday evening, she advised that I do no exercise this week to help make sure that my thumb starts to heal correctly and there's no complications with it because I was running while I had this open slice on my thumb. And so what this actually means is, as you can see, I'll go ahead and bump this back. On Monday, I hurt my finger, and that means that for the entire rest of the week, I couldn't run because I sliced off a part of my thumb. And so this was a major setback, obviously, for this week, but I'm obviously going to follow my doctor's recommendations, and I didn't run at all this week. So I actually went back and forth quite a bit on whether or not I actually wanted to make a video this week regarding my training, because, as you just heard, I didn't actually do any training this week. And I think it can be important because this isn't something that happens to just me, and just because I am making videos regarding my results doesn't mean that this isn't a result. So by hurting my finger and not being able to run this week, I essentially had the same result as if I just didn't run at all with no reason for not running. And so this is, I think, an important thing to talk about and to think about and realize that is a part of training, especially for me when I'm training for almost an entire year. There will be instances when you take a week off or take a few days off. And I think it's important to, 1, recognize that that's okay. And 2, realize that this just means you have to be extra focused to restart, because it's very easy to compound days off when it's one after another, because you get so used to not running, you realize that you have all this extra time and you're not as uncomfortable and by pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone as much. And so dealing with adversity during your training is a very important topic, because it's going to happen. I don't think there are very few people who can make it as their entire training without taking a single day off, without missing a couple of days, maybe even taking a week off anywhere here or there. And so by talking about it and bringing it up, you're normalizing it and accepting that this thing can happen, but it doesn't have to define the rest of the training. I'm now more motivated than ever to jump back into training this week. Granted, a little easier, and we'll get into that in the next segment when I go over my runs for this coming week, I should say. But when I cut part of my finger off this week, obviously that takes precedent over just running. It's silly to think that my marathon training is so important that I should risk permanently injuring myself. Maybe not even permanently, but injuring myself more just to run when I had this happen. So this week, it's had a week to heal up. And so going into this week, it's something that I'm really focused on to make sure that, one, I stay safe, and if I feel any discomfort in my hand at all, I'm going to cut the run short and be okay with that. And two, making sure that I do get out and do these runs, even if they're not exactly what the original workout was. So with that said, let's jump over into looking at this week's runs and some potential modifications I may make because of this injury that I caused to myself. Okay, so looking ahead at the highlighted row here, we have Tuesday, a 5-mile interval run with 10 sections of 1 minute hard and 2 minutes recovery. I think I may do this one as intended, or at least attempt to, because that interval training can be a really good way to get back into training, especially one setup like this where it's 1 minute on, 2 minutes off. I think it'll be nice to get out and stretch my legs a little bit. So while I don't think I lost a lot in terms of cardiovascular level, but it is a good opportunity to stretch the legs open again and not just do a constant pace run. So moving ahead to Thursday, we have a 7-mile jog at marathon pace. This one, I may modify the pace, maybe not the distance, unless, of course, during the run, I decide to, for discomfort reasons. But 7 miles, pretty okay. I probably, like I said, will modify the pace so maybe it's a little bit slower and easier. So again, continue to work on working myself back into the flow of running. Then Saturday, we have a 3-mile hills run. As I've talked about before, San Antonio isn't the most hilly city in the world. So hills is loose definition thereof. So I may extend this. I usually like to extend this run maybe a little past 3 miles just to help simulate some of the extra hardship that hills would bring. And then looking ahead to Sunday, it actually wants us to run a 10-mile race. When it says these race runs, they mean a race. They want you to register for a race to run in a competitive environment, both with my thumb and kind of with everything that's happening in the world right now. There aren't very many 10-mile races happening. And so depending on how this week goes and how I feel, it may be a personal race to where I run it as if I were running a race to try and simulate it to the best of my ability, but without any actual organized races happening in San Antonio. This one obviously is a little harder. So those are the runs for this week. As I've mentioned multiple times, with the injury I did to my thumb, these may be modified during the day of. As of today, these are what I'm planning on doing, and the kind of modifications I made primarily around a Thursday run with the marathon pace. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen that way, but who knows? Maybe we will. So we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. So that's going to wrap it up for me here, guys. This was been episode 3, and we looked back at the June 1st to June 7th week and kind of the adversity that I had to deal with during it with injuring my thumb, and kind of what these kind of setbacks and adversity can mean in your plan as well, and how it's okay that these things happen and to remain focused moving forward out of them, because I think your response to this adversity can be more important than what actually happened in the first place. We looked ahead to next week and the runs and potential modifications I may make. I'm still planning on taking it slow. I'm working back into it, both just from a health point of view as well as an injury point of view. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it wasn't the most exciting because things didn't actually run, or I didn't actually run, but I did injure myself cooking dinner, and I think that is worth noting and celebrating for the ridiculousness that it is. With that being said, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like down below, and I'd really appreciate it. And in the comment section, let me know what kind of adversity you deal with when you're doing your running, or even if you're not following a training plan, just kind of the things that you've had to deal with and had to overcome to get back out there. And always, as always, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content. I release these videos once every week following last week's runs, as well as other content covering different topics and ideas that I find enjoyable and I think could be helpful to other people. But that'll do it for me this week, guys. I will see you next week.